It's the morning of August 8th, and Shan'ann Watts wastes no time alerting everyone about her debacle. She starts off Wednesday morning venting almost hysterically about her situation. She tells Sarah Nutt she tried to have sex with her husband, presumably after they arrived home from the airport, and Watts rejected her. Again, this event will later play into the psychology of his fictional versions after the fact. It's also a major blunder of the cops that they didn't question Watts at length on exactly what happened when he arrived home with Shanann on the night of August 7th in order to set a general precedent. Shanann's admission that she's not cried this hard ever provides perspective on just how emotionally compromised she was, and who wouldn't be given the stakes: drowning in debt, battling her in-laws, pregnant, sick, her husband cheating on her and poisoning her, doesn't want the third baby, and 2 temperamental young children to look after. The tantrums aren't pleasant either. Shanann has fought back by reviewing her own phone data and holding this up as evidence, interrogating him, asking him to explain it. This too is going to turn the lights in his cockpit red.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head,
Shanann refers to 12 separate texts where she begged him to talk to her, but instead he was asleep at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. In fact, he wasn't asleep. He was at Kessinger's home throughout the month of July. Let's go to the discovery documents. He stayed at Kessinger's house almost every night his wife and daughters were in North Carolina. He felt like he didn't have time at home to think about his marriage when Shanann and the girls were out of state. He went home after work to work out, eat dinner, and then would go over to Kessinger's house. He slept over at Kessinger's house almost the entire month of July, and that is when and how he got so smitten with her. Being away from home allowed him to not think about being a father and husband because he wasn't surrounded by reminders of his family. Shanann sending him evidence off her phone would also have vividly alerted Watts to a narrative about him that he had very little control over, and this was the thing he was becoming increasingly anxious about: how to make sure he stayed on top of his narrative. It was important his mistress didn't get a different impression of him, especially not from his pregnant wife. The arguing between the two also doesn't sound as mild as it was in North Carolina, when they shared their living quarters with her folks. But with them out the way now, Shanann is free to let rip on Watts, and she does. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're learning something new in this series, you might want to hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss alerts. Otherwise, you can follow me on X at Crime Rocket. I put links every time I post a video there. Also, I want to recommend Two-Face Drilling Through Discovery, the 5th book in the series. It's very highly rated at 4.4 out of 5, and the most recent review reads, "Best coverage of this case. Every novel is its own telling of this case. Nick is above and beyond other authors on this case." Then just a shout out to Stephanie Smith. Thank you very much for your super thanks. And then I want to make a comment on Jules Summers, who writes, "There are plenty of women that are assertive, but there's no excuse for murder." And this was my response: of course there's no excuse for murder. I hope you don't mind if I read the phone data review as is in their own words. How many of you were aware that Chris Watts tried to poison his wife twice? How many of you were aware that he even tried to do so once? And do you know when the second occasion actually occurred? Well, we're going to find that out in the phone data review. Like many, you seem to confuse reviewing the phone data review and understanding criminal psychology with either sympathizing with the perpetrator or blaming the victim. It's neither. Understanding criminal psychology is about understanding criminal psychology. Why did the criminal think and act the way that he did? That's not rationalizing the acts of a criminal, but understanding what the context was and what made him act. Improperly and illegally, obviously, but what made him act in the way that he did? It should not be necessary to even say this, but apparently it still is. So the purpose of the phone data review is to literally figure out what happened. That means going into Shannan's heart and mind and also going into the killer's heart and mind. It is difficult, it is arduous, but it's important that we do understand what really happened and not what we think happened. All right, this is a very important episode, and so are the next couple that follow. We are now at 5 days to the murders. So let's get started. Now, we want to put these words on screen because they are really pretty hard hitting. I tried talking to him after rejection last night and me crying alone for an hour on the couch. He slept. I kicked his sorry ass out of bed and I refused to sleep on the couch anymore this week. Told him to not come home today if he can't tell me the damn truth on what the hell is wrong. Make no mistake, this is Shan'ann, no holds barred, passive, crying, aggressive, threatening, putting her foot down, laying down the law, and who wouldn't in her situation? It's unclear where Watts was sleeping in bed, whether it was in the basement or in her bed. If he was in the basement, why would she be on the couch though? Consider the irony of her telling him not to come home if he can't tell the damn truth, and what he elected to do with that threat. He made her disappear, not come home, so that she couldn't tell anyone the truth. Also, consider the irony of Watts, for 5 weeks prior, having the run of his house, and the first night back, his wife basically bullies him, threatens him, kicks him out of bed. This is from his perspective. All the while, what is he wishing? He's wishing that he could be with Kissinger. It's much nicer with her. But knowing he can't because she's around. In this emotionally fraught moment, the thought has to be clanging in his head, I just wish I could get rid of her. I just wish I could fix the situation. This cannot continue. Shan'ann also acknowledges for the first time that it's not just a case that Watts doesn't want the baby. He'd be prepared to kill the child through an abortion. Now, some people have said, there's just no way that you can tell that there was going to be a family annihilation. But this is a very clear indication that he's already clear that he doesn't want the baby, which means he wants the baby to not be alive. And that's a very serious position for the father of a family to take with regard to another child that is pending, I guess. At 8:06, we get a peek on Shannann's intuition regarding the affair. It's on her mind, but she's not certain. One of the reasons for this is a pretty good reason Watts offers in his defense, and it just shows how good he is at gaslighting. Shan'ann accused him of cheating and he told her, that would never happen, like, the kind of guy I am. And hence, Shan'ann also told Amanda Thayer she wasn't too concerned about an affair because she knew, and he knew, he had no game. But this was a critical error on her part. It was also a neat psychological manipulation from him to goad her towards her own familiar contempt for him, certainly in this area. Now, consider the irony as well in Chris Watts saying he doesn't want the baby and Shan'ann saying, we are supposed to go to the ultrasound tonight and he doesn't want the baby. He'd abort if I said it was okay. And she's 100% right there. And so what is going to happen regardless? She's going to take him to the ultrasound. At 8:06, Shan'ann told Sarah he said he's not having an affair. Sarah asked Shan'ann if she's certain of this, and Shan'ann said, honestly, no. But what else would make him do a complete 360? We couldn't get enough of each other before I left. 08:52, Josh Rosenberg asks Watts if he was excited for the ultrasound. Today's the day, right? Watts replied he had just returned to work and added, yep, today's the day. I'm excited. Watts confirmed the ultrasound was at 1900 hours. 15:11, Watts made an unspecified modification to Shannann's contact information in his work phone. Very important, to his work phone. Can you see the criminal psychology is already ticking upward? 1925, Kissinger searched Google on topics related to marrying your mistress. 21:54, Shan'ann told Nicole and Cassie he said we are not compatible anymore. He refused to hug me, said he thought another baby would fix his feelings, said he refused couples counseling. Shan'ann elaborated, he said he had a lot of time to reflect his feelings. He said he's going to work it out. But Shan'ann said she doesn't know how he's going to work out his feelings when he won't agree to counseling. So that is also another serious warning sign that he's remaining adamant he doesn't want this child. He says that they're incompatible. He doesn't want to go to counseling and he wants to get out of the marriage. Her friends offered support and suggestions to work this out. 21:57. Josh begged Watts, "Bro, I'm waiting so patiently. Don't leave me hanging." Watts replied, "Lol, the envelope is sealed until next weekend." Josh asked if they were going to hold a reveal, and Watts said yes. So you can see that there seems to be an effort from Shan'ann leveraging Cassie, who's leaning on Josh to lean onto Watts in terms of his feelings about the gender reveal. 22:19, Shan'ann told Nicole and Cassie, "I will fight for full custody." Shan'ann said Watts told her he does not want to divorce right away. Now, that's not what he's told Nicole Kessinger. He's told her that they basically have separated and are divorcing. And it seems like this is an attempt to try and get Shan'ann to calm down, to soothe her, to try and control her. 22:40, Shan'ann told the woman, "I can't afford 3 kids alone in Colorado." Shan'ann said their current home loan is on Chris's name. Her friends rallied around Shan'ann. So here you can see another dimension to what's going on. There's a lot of stress in the equation, financial stress. And that means even if Shan'ann consents to the divorce, she's doing the math and she realizes, I can't do this. I can't do this in Colorado, which perhaps suggests she may need to move back home. 23:08, Shan'ann searched Google on topics like emotion-focused therapy, couples therapy. Now, when Josh Rosenberg, Cassie's husband, contacted Watts to ask about the baby's gender, Watts must have felt his ears burning. Clearly, Shan'ann was waking up the neighborhood, talking about them and the baby. Going into the discovery, the last week Chris and Shan'ann were in North Carolina, he told her that he did not want the third baby, was not in love with Shan'ann, and did not care about Shan'ann or the baby. He told Shan'ann that he had thought having a third baby would fix things. Once Shan'ann flew home to Colorado, she only texted Cassie because she did not want Chris to know that she was discussing their problems with others. Cassie would later tell the cops that Shan'ann only texted her because she didn't want Watts to hear her talking about him. She knew she wasn't supposed to be discussing their problems with others. Just think about those words. Shan'ann knew she wasn't supposed to be discussing their problems with others. Now you can imagine that was very, very important to Chris Watts that be the case, because he's trying to protect his relationship with Kessinger, right? And so this is essentially Shan'ann crossing a kind of line in the sand, certainly in terms of Chris Watts's criminal psychology. Now, more than likely, Watts had been clear that he didn't want her to air their dirty laundry in public, especially after what happened during Nutgate with his folks. And public basically means Facebook. Shan'ann agreed, but then went behind his back and communicated anyway. Josh asking him about the baby proved that Shan'ann had broken her word with him, and this made him vulnerable in his affair. And so what was he thinking in regards to this? Wow, I'm going to have to put a stop to this. How do I put a stop to this? Well, one of the things he does is he deletes his Facebook account. At 15:11, Watts made a change to Shanann's contact details, perhaps to prevent Kessinger from seeing anything on his work phone. Given what was happening, there was likely to be a flurry of histrionic traffic between him and his wife, certainly during this phase. At 19:25, when Kessinger Googles marrying your mistress, this day is also a rendezvous with her at the office, and a break at long last from the loveless drama and bitter feuding of the last week. Watts also apparently told her then, immediately after arriving back, "We are getting a divorce and perhaps I will marry you." At this point, he had told Shanann that they were incompatible and didn't want the baby. It's also on this day that she tells Nicole Atkinson and Cassie she will fight for full custody. August 8th is thus the first time he mentions divorce to Shanann, but also tells her he's not in a hurry. In the phone data review, cursory remarks are made about a critical conversation Shanann has with Nicole and Cassie at 22:19. That's on August 8th, littered with expletives. Part of this conversation includes Shanann asking for the pregnancy reveal that Taylor Welsh is organizing to be cancelled as per Watts' instructions. This is also a key issue that is worrying him. Shanann also asks her friends not to post anything on Facebook. as I say, this is the day prior to what's scrubbing his Facebook profile. So you can see there's a kind of a negotiation going on. Shanann wants him to go to counseling. Shanann wants to perhaps spend a weekend together. Watts is saying, okay, well, just don't post anything about your pregnancy on social media. Now, have a look at this in the discovery. Shanann texts Taylor about cancelling the reveal. Nicole said that she texted Taylor. Shanann tells them not to slip on Facebook as she does not want anyone to know right now because Chris will then know and she wants him to want to know. Cassie replied, fuck him. Yep, I said it. Shanann replied, I agree, Cass. Both Nicole and Cassie agreed to not post on Facebook. Shanann replied, please no. He doesn't deserve to know. He doesn't even want it. Jackass. He's such a fucking liar. He said, I think it would be great having another. He wanted this. He started the convo. You don't get me pregnant and not love me. What's that going to do? Nicole encourages Shanann, stating that she is one of the strongest people she knows and knows that she will get through this. Shanann replied, fuck him. I am nowhere near perfect, but I love unconditionally. I give my all. I do so much as a mom and a wife. More than 90% of women out there. This fucking sucks so bad because I do love him and his fucking flaws. Cassie encouraged Shanann and Shanann replied, this was a total slap in the face. Stab in the back to the heart. I can't afford 3 kids alone in Colorado. In a very general sense, what are we dealing with here? Well, an escalation of anxiety, an escalation of stress, an escalation in the stakes between these two people. Now, can you imagine if Chris Watts actually saw this particular exchange where both Shanann and Cassie are saying, fuck him, and they are conspiring to take his house in these messages as well. And he's literally being kicked out of his own bed, right? What's basically being set up here is the gloves are off and you're going to lose, pal. So what are the chances that he did see it if they had shared access to the iCloud as many couples do? From the discovery, we know that at a certain point they did share access. So in hindsight, it's unfortunate that Shanann was indiscreet about the private issues of their marriage. Watts had only just confided in her, and he did so reluctantly and with difficulty. She could be discreet about certain issues when she wanted to be, such as their money troubles. If it suited her, Shanann could keep secrets. But even if her husband asked her to do so, Shanann didn't seem to have any qualms about going behind his back. After all, fuck him. She wore the pants. She was the one in control. This is a very delicate area because on the one hand you'd say, for her safety, she should include others in what is going on. But she's in a very delicate situation as well because he is caught in a bind and also feeling like he doesn't want to lose control. And so at the end of the day, what's going on here is a power struggle over essentially the narrative. What narrative? The narrative of this baby. There's quite a lot more to say with regard to August 8th. I'm going to just show you a couple of expletive-laden texts, including the house is on Chris's name, fuck him, you get the kids and you keep the house, and they're sort of talking about kicking him out and the Rosenbergs moving in Chris Watts' place, renting there. So what else happens on August 8th? Well, the couple go to the ultrasound, and at the end of the day, Shanann is lying in her bed by herself, looking for reading material for her husband, thinking he just needs therapy and some counseling. Meanwhile, what is Kessinger doing? She's already searching for apartments for Chris Watts. There's still quite a lot to say about the events of this day, but I'll let those of you who are interested, you can go and read about it on Patreon at patreon.com/TCRS. Thank you for listening. Look out for the next episode in this series, and I'll see you guys next time.